everyone. My name is Brittney Muto, and I'm going to be talking about humanizing AI and empowering users through transparent design. Before we get started, I just wanted to understand where everyone is from in terms of, if you're a designer, can you raise your hand? If you're a developer on a tech team, and if you're anything in between, our favorite PMs, business devs. Awesome. Okay, great. So I'm currently a lead product designer at Osetia. It's an innovation-driven software and design agency, and we focus primarily on the sectors of manufacturing, mining, healthcare, and finance. And healthcare has been a primary focus of mine. Prior to Osetia, I was the design manager at a robotics and industrial automation company, where I led the design across their 4 core product offerings. In both of these experiences, I've had the opportunity to work with emerging technologies and the nuances and challenges that come with them. And so while today's talk does focus primarily on UX UI, I hope it can resonate with developers and everyone who is working with design teams in order to bridge that gap. And due to the fact that I'm working in agency, I do have real life examples, but they are under NDA and confidential, so I've white labeled them. So, well, before we get started, I'll just do a quick agenda of what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be going over what causes a lack of trust in AI products, how we bridge these trust gaps through 5 pillars or themes of AI design, which were inspired by my experience working on healthcare products, some design concepts in action, and final thoughts. So when we don't design thoughtfully, it can sound a little something like this. Imagine you just applied for a new job. You were super excited about the opportunity because you have the years of experience, you're excited about the company, and you thought you had a pretty good shot at getting it. But AI decides otherwise. And that's exactly what happened in 2018 when a major tech company implemented an AI-powered hiring tool to streamline their recruiting. It was programmed on 10 years of past hiring data, which was inherent to societal and gender biases. And so it systematically downgraded resumes that had the word women, women's activities, women's organizations, and promoted male-dominated resumes. And this is what happens when, at the heart of this and many other AI issues lies data. And when that data is not thoughtfully looked at and the way it's processed can affect that AI output and behavior. And UX research plays a pivotal role in ensuring that we are understanding to design systems with human limitations, needs, and biases. And by deeply understanding how users interact with a system, it can offer insights that might otherwise be overlooked, like in this example. So how do we, so let's take a look at what these trust gaps, where they stem from. And the thing is, there's still a level of unpredictability with AI systems. It's a new concept, a new technology, new things can be scary. And many users, especially those from underrepresented groups, struggle to trust AI due to 4 main reasons. Starting with a lack of transparency. AI is no longer a futuristic concept. We're at that uncomfortable place of growth where we need to more seamlessly integrate it with our everyday lives. Whether that's because you must use it in a job, or whether that's because you want to have access to a tool that can make you more creative, work faster, have more answers at your fingertips. But for a lot of people, this is a struggle when it's difficult to understand how decisions are made. And that lack of clarity in decision-making diminishes trust and makes it difficult for users to identify errors. And the next is bias and discrimination. AI can inadvertently perpetuate bias due to the data the model is trained on. And this causes it to inaccurately represent a population, leading to inaccurate responses. And this obviously leads to a major lack of trust in its users. The fourth is concerns about reliability and accuracy. Instances of AI making mistakes can quickly erode the trust by the user. And the thing is, AI models will never be 100% accurate, but it's on us as designers to identify that and mitigate that feeling and that trust gap. And the fourth is ethical concerns. There's a general resistance, and because of the feeling that it can be potentially misused or fill jobs. And often users feel like they're the ones in the backseat and they're not the one controlling the AI, which can be an uncomfortable position to be in. So bridging trust gaps requires a combination of transparency, inclusivity, and accessibility. And we're at a pivotal moment where we can shape tools that empower audiences regardless of their skills and backgrounds, which leads us into how we can bridge these trust gaps. So these are 5 pillars or concepts of AI design that we can integrate into our design practices, and they were inspired by my experience working on healthcare products. So we can solve trust gaps by providing a human-centered approach, identifying risks early on, and ensuring that we're designing with transparency in mind. And so in terms of where these pillars stem from, some of you may have had the experience where you've used or seen a healthcare product or app where some feel overly clinical, which can create fear or discomfort. Others can overwhelm users with medical jargon or fail to provide enough context. And finally, it's important to have the balance of the right amount of information. Too much can overwhelm, and too little can leave users feeling confused or unsupported. And there's a very similar parallel when it comes to AI systems. There's that general anxiety around the unknowingness of AI. And you might have heard the term the black box concept. That's when you look in the box, you don't know how it works, you don't know where your answers are coming from, and it can leave the user feeling anxious and not knowing the expectations to have around the system. And so through these pillars, we can mitigate this feeling. So like healthcare, AI products require a personalized and tailored experience. So we should tailor the experience to an individual versus a one-size-fits-all approach. Tailoring content, features, visuals to align with users' goals and expectations. And this can all be learned through our UX research methods, like user interviews, personas, looking at user analytics. And AI should look different for everyone, depending on where you're coming from. So this might look like dynamic adjustments and offerings, features that adapt based off of the user's behavior, preferences, or progress. And I have 2 very different examples of how personalization has been implemented in a couple projects I've worked on. The first was a virtual fertility application. In this application, a user went through a process where they had to complete a questionnaire and then get a blood test. Those results were fed back into the system, and they were provided with suggestions on how to best approach their fertility health. And so we had to recognize users' vulnerabilities in this situation, acknowledge that some may be navigating sensitive or emotional topics, and we had to offer reassurance through tailored and personalized content. And so it was about creating an experience that felt natural and relevant. But with that, users were navigating a really sensitive topic, so looking at their results, looking at their questionnaire, we could offer something that felt like it was just for them and offer that reassurance. In the second example, which I have a visual here for, this is where we created a Gen AI tool for an internal company to streamline the creation of international policies. Although the UI looks pretty much identical, the options and the offerings are different per user. So in the bottom example here, this user was in a training position. So they got options about making a quiz, a hiring guide, generating hiring rules. And we were even joking about the ability to make Jeopardy. And so in the top version, a very different role, this person was actually creating the policies. So they needed access for the ability to identify policies, check their policy, and check the readability of that policy. So 2 very different roles, but their expectations and needs were different. And so we offered options and next steps based off of that situation. And a question the client actually asked before we got started is, well, this is a new system. How are the users gonna know what they can do once they arrive upon these screens? And offering personalized options, deeply understanding the user and their role and their needs and expectations was an answer to that through the form of, one of the ways was through the form of this. And so we had to offer relevant and accurate personalization and anticipate user needs. Okay, between these two examples, although they're vastly different, the subject matter is very different between the fertility or generating international policies. We had to have a similar approach at understanding and empathizing with the user, understanding the context and their role, and offering options and features that aligned with that. It's about integrating personalization that will deeply show that we understand the user and having a product that adapts to them. And just a note on these graphics, although you're going to see a Gen AI tool, the concepts and key principles can be applied to any AI tool. And so the next theme is prioritized accessibility. So if you've ever been to a design talk, you've probably heard the word accessibility, but bear with me. It's brought up so often because it's not a negotiable. It's just good product design. And that's because 1.3 billion people in the world have a disability. That's 16% of the world. So to bring that a little bit closer to you, in a room or a company of 60 people, that's 9 or 10 people that have trouble with poor accessibility. And so there's no demographic, and it can't be excluded from your audience. And so by following accessibility standards, we can ensure language barriers, visual impairments, and cognitive abilities are considered, while also catering to diverse literacy levels, cultures, and needs. So in terms of what this can look like, we can offer options through modes of interaction. So we can see we have a voice to text button. We can offer a simplified user experience, so avoiding jargon-heavy interfaces and making sure that we're counteracting that with icons, tooltips, progressive disclosure of information, and just in general, reaching overall accessibility standards. Thinking about where your product is going to be used. So for example, if your product is sold and used in Europe, they have different accessibility standards than North America. Within North America, Quebec and Ontario have different accessibility standards. So thinking about where in the context that the product will be used. And just to take that a step further, although you also have to think about the context in which a user is going to be using your product. So if this voice to text button was going to be used in a manufacturing warehouse, would it work if there was a machine running in the background and there was noise? If they were outside, would the sun glaring down on their screen affect their ability to use the product? If their screen was cracked, could they still use it? So it's thinking about who's using it, where they're using it, and why they're using it. So thinking about not just the abilities of the person, but also the context in which the person is using the application. And accessibility is a really deep subject, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So continue learning, continue advocating for your users, and this is one way we can do that. The next principle is transparency and control. So this means we want to keep our users informed throughout the process. They should always feel in control of their experience with AI. And so we need to understand how AI makes decisions and what factors influence the answer they see and communicate that back to the user. It's our responsibility to shape tools that make it clear whether AI is playing a supporting role in the human making decision making, or whether it's a case to best fully automate the process. So between these two options of having the AI support the human versus fully automating the process, the appropriate balance needs to be identified and clearly communicated back to the user. This allows users to then make an informed decision, whether that's challenging the answer they're given, going and seeking more sources, or running with the answer. And so in terms of what that can look like, there's different modes and features that you could integrate. On the left is a decision log. So this allows users to see the rationale and the thinking of the machine. It walks the user through the steps of the sources it looked at, how it got to that end answer, and it just takes a little bit of time to look at how we're getting the answers and the responses for users to understand the information they're being provided with. In the middle is a confidence score, and so this can be contextual within a screen where a user can see how sure or unsure the answer they're being provided is. So they can then go and challenge it if it's maybe 57% not so sure, so I want to go seek more sources and validate the information I'm being provided. And And lastly is the ability to give feedback. So I should be able to tag a response if it's biased, out of date, incorrect. And not only does it help the AI system continually learn, but it's a passive reminder to the user that they're the one in control and they're feeding that answer back to their system and they're leading their responses. All of these things are working towards explainable AI, which is the end goal and what we have to continue to strive towards. The fourth is providing clear access to resources and anchoring in data. Information equals control and is essential for empowering users, and that means your product should offer access to credible sources and make it clear where the information they're being shown is coming from. They can also have the ability to dive deeper into that information and continue to discover and understand the answers they're being provided. So this might seem like an obvious one, having a panel that shows both maybe internal and external sources that they're being provided with, but you still see it missing from a lot of AI tools. And it's in combination with a decision log, being able to seek out sources. A user can know exactly where their answer is coming from. And it builds trust and transparency by pulling down that metaphorical curtain between human and machine. And it continues to show what's happening in an AI system isn't magic, it's math, and allow users to better grasp and therefore trust or challenge the information they're being provided with. And the fifth, I think that's 4 on 5, is tech design collaboration. This is arguably one of the more important ones as well. It's important that we collaborate with our tech teams so we better understand the data sets being used. We want to ensure we're not relying only on historical data, which can be inherent to biases, as we saw from that beginning example. And so this could look like potentially running a workshop with your tech team and diving into understanding where the data is coming from and how decisions are determined. This way, you as a designer can assess if there is unfair bias in the data, and because if unchecked, bias can be perpetuated and made worse once it makes it to the system. And this process of running a workshop can look different for everyone. So do what works best for your team. At Osetia, we specialize in running workshops, but at the heart of this, it's a guided conversation with specific questions. So if a workshop doesn't align with your team, that also could look like having a meeting at a lunch table, setting a meeting at 3 p.m. to chat with your developers. They all reach the same goal of bridging that understanding gap and bringing you and your developer tech team closer to your audience. The caveat here is that it's important to actually understand how it works and understand where the data is coming from so you can better define a solution. It's really easy to fall into the trap of creating just another ChatGPT, but that's not the goal. The goal is to redefine what AI looks like for your audience and offer a solution that is specific and personalized to them. The other thing that you can do in order to close this gap is share your user information and user testing insights back to your tech team. So this can help not only your tech team empathize more with your user, it can help them help you understand why you're looking at the data. It can help them understand what needs to be discovered, the insights we're looking at, what bias might exist in that data. And so it's about them supporting you in looking at that data and finding where it can be improved. And a lot of the time that user information is siloed to the design team. We don't share it back to our tech team, but it helps them empathize and know why they're building what they're building. It motivates them to build a better product because they can see users are struggling in a certain way, and they can be part of the solution in helping that. And the next section we're going to talk about is some design concepts in action. So we've spoken about these key design principles to create better trust, like a personalized and tailored experience, accessibility, transparency and control, access to resources, and tech design collaboration. So how does this look like in practice? And to be honest, designing for AI isn't that much different from designing for any other product. We still follow the same design thinking principles and keep the user at the heart of the experience, but there's some certain points that we want to have some extra elements and considerations in mind as we work through it. So we probably all are pretty familiar with this workflow. We've seen it, we love it. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So during the understand phase is when we want to start working with our user, understanding their expectations, anxieties specific to AI. We want to gather diverse perspectives, so we're ensuring the project resonates across demographics, and we're understanding the audience's expectations so we can design with those in mind, build trust, and explain capabilities. As we move down the line, now that we've learned about our user, we have a good grasp on their understanding, what we need to do for them. This is when we can start collaborating with our tech team and diving into those data sets, reflecting on the population, and ensuring that we're sharing those insights that we've learned back to our tech team. Once we have an understanding of how we can approach our design, we can move forward into what is some people think is the most fun part of shaping your design. So we build trust through transparent design based off what we learned in the understand phase. And we include relevant features like AI response explanation, exposed sources, personalization, and we're keeping users informed and at the heart of the experience. Of course, we want to test our designs and make sure we're testing with diverse audiences so we can identify unintentional consequences and understand if the data and design properly reflect the complexities of the human experience. That seems all too easy though, doesn't it? And it's never that easy. There's always time constraints, budget constraints, maybe a certain UX activity wasn't included in your project scope. So how do we actually design a proper humanistic product in reality? And this is where educating comes in. Educating is a huge part of our role as a designer, so people understand why we do what we do. It's a lot of the time if we say it's not that big of a deal, we don't need to do user testing, people are going to believe us. So we have to advocate and explain why we're doing user testing, why we're doing a prioritization workshop. It makes it clear and helps advocate for the design process so people can see the importance of what we're doing to get to that end product. And it's so much more expensive to design something without doing all of our proper processes. And if you have to redo the product after, then it's 100 times more expensive. One way you can do this is speak your stakeholders' language, speak your tech team's language. If you think about what a developer wants, they don't want to code something twice. So if your reason for spending a little bit more time is so that someone doesn't have to do extra work down the line, explain that. Explain to stakeholders why you're doing a certain activity and the value that it holds. And just in terms of some final thoughts, the future of AI design lies in empathy, anticipating diverse user needs, and creating familiar, empowering environments. By embedding ethical and inclusive design practices now, we have the opportunity to shape AI as a force for good and a driver of change. I encourage you all, designers, developers, researchers, PMs if you're here, to integrate human-centered principles into your AI projects and work on getting closer to your users and understanding the depths of their experience. We can create products that are transparent and personalized, tools that empower users and audiences to give them equal access to success. This is how we work towards creating towards humanizing AI and setting the standard for what meaningful, inclusive design looks like in this space. Thank you.